Hello class, and welcome back to section 8.6, solving rational equations and inequalities. This is the part 3 of the video. We're going to do some solving rational equations with word problems, and then we're going to go ahead and look at solving rational inequalities. Okay, so to go ahead and start out, example 10, which is on the back side of your note sheet, Brianna and Owen paint houses together. If Brianna can paint a particular house in 6 days and Owen can paint the same house in 5 days, how long would it take the two of them if they worked together? Okay, so we want to figure out how long would it take the two of them. So really what we're trying to figure out is how many days can they do the house in. So we're going to let x equal the number of days. Okay, so let's just say, for instance, we can get an idea of this. If we had 10 days, how many houses could Owen paint? Okay, he paid in 5 days, so he could do 2 houses. So the way you would write it is x over 5. That's going to tell us the part that Owen can complete. Okay, it's the number of days that he's going to be taking out of the days given for how long it takes to paint the house. So this is Owen's part of the work, plus Brianna's part of the work. Well, she can paint 1 house in 6 days. So once again, if she had 12 days, she could do 2 houses. If she had 18 days, she could do 3 houses. So this is the part that Brianna has to complete the house. And this is equal to, well, how many houses do we want to paint? 1. Okay, so the part completed by Owen plus the part completed by Brianna will equal the 1 house being painted. Okay, so here is my rational equation. So now I want to solve it. So my common denominator, my least common denominator would be, well, what's the least common multiple between 5 and 6? Well, we know that's going to be 30. So I multiply everything by 30. So I have 30x over 5 plus 30x over 6 is equal to, that was supposed to go over here, 30. Okay, now I go ahead and simplify. 30 divided by 5 is 6. 30 divided by 6 is 5. So what I have is 6x plus 5x equals 30. I add those, I have 11x is equal to 30. Divide by 11. So x is equal to 30 out of 11. And this is representing the number of days. Okay, so let's go ahead and figure out, well, how many days is this? How many times does 11 go into 30? 2. And my remainder would be, if I have 22 to 30, would be 8 out of 11. So it's going to take 2 and 8/11 days. Okay, so almost 3 full days for them to complete the house together. Example 11. The ratio of 16 more than a number, so 16 more than a number, to 12 less than a number is 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this 2 is representing our division or our fraction piece. Same thing here. Okay, so 16 more than a number. So let's just let x equal the number. So 16 more than a number will be x plus 16 all over, because division, 12 less than that number. Well, the number we have is x minus 12 is, we all know that our math word is means equals 1 over 3. Since I have just one fraction on the left and one fraction on the right, I can go ahead and cross multiply. So I take this times this. So I'd have 1 times x minus 12. So it's just x minus 12 is equal to 3 times x plus 16. So we're going to have to distribute that. Excuse me, 48. So I would go ahead and I would subtract x and subtract 48. Negative 12 minus 48 is negative 60 is equal to 3x minus x is 2x. And then I would go ahead and divide by 2 on both sides. So negative 30 is equal to x. So my number is negative 30. Okay, that is example 11. So those are some solving rational equations with word problems. Now we're going to go ahead and look at our inequalities. Okay, we need to solve the rational inequalities that are listed below. Okay, so just going to try and see if I can get the screen on here. All right, there we go. So you can see it all. So we want to solve this rational inequality. Here's the trick with this. Okay, you go ahead and you figure out what the answer to this would be if you just solve it. So we're just going to go ahead and solve it. So you have 1 over 4a plus 5 over 8a is equal to 1 over 2. Okay, and then I go ahead and I've solved this. So I would say, well, what would my least common denominator be? Well, I know that I can multiply all of these to 8, so it'd be 8a. I distribute, and let's see. So I would have 8a over 4a plus 5 times 8a over 8a is equal to 8a over 2. Okay, so if I simplify this, I would go ahead and see that my a's on the first piece will cancel, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. Then I have 8a's, those will cancel, so plus 5 is equal to 4a. So this gives me 7 is equal to 4a, and if I divide by 4, I get that a is equal to 1.75, or you could write it as 1 3/4, whichever way you want. Okay, so that's my first step. Now my next step in order to solve this inequality is to go ahead and look at my denominator. Okay, if I look at my denominator, I would want to see, well, what number would make my denominator 0? So if I set this equal to 0, well, if a equals 0, then my denominator will be 0. So now you have a equals 0 and a equals 7.5. Okay, so what you do is you look at your number line and you mark this. So this is, let's say this is 0, this is, let's go, 1, this is 2. So you apply your two values on there. We have 0, and we have 1.75, which would be about here. Okay, these are like our dividers. Now you're going to pick a number that's less than 0. Okay, so if I pick a number that's less than 0, I'm going to say, well, let a equal -1. And you go ahead and you plug that in to your original equation and see if it will work out. So I would have 1 over 4 times -1 would be -4, plus 5 over 8 times -1, which would be -8. And we want to know, is that greater than 1/2? Okay, well, if you go ahead and simplify your left-hand side, you could already probably do it. You take a negative minus a negative. That will be less than 1/2, not greater. So this part does not work. Okay. Then I go ahead and I move. So I check something to the left. Now I'm going to check something in between these two. So something that's in between 0 and 1.5 would be if a equals 1. I plug in a 1 for a. So I'd have 1 over 4 times 1, which will give me 4, plus 5 over 8 times 1, which will give me 5 over 8. And we want to know, is that greater than 1/2? Well, 1/4 plus 5/8 will be greater than 1/2. That gives me 0.875, this left-hand side. And so yes, that is greater than 1/2. So that means that works. So that means you're going to shade this part of my inequality. Okay, so that's good. And now the last thing I need to do is check a number that's bigger than 1.75. So I would check a equals 2. So if I plug in 2 to my original equation, okay, so I would have 1 over 4 times 2. So I would have 1 over 8 plus 5 over 8 times 2, which gives me 5 over 16. Is that greater than 1/2? Well, 1/8 plus 5/8 plus 5/16 is 0.4372. If you type it in on your calculator, is that greater than 1/2? No, so I do not shade to the right. So my answer is only where it is shaded. Okay, so my value or my final answer is that 0 is less than, not equal to, a, okay, and is less than 1.75. Only included in between there, and it's not equal. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the exact same thing with number 13. So first things first is to actually solve 13. So I'm going to solve 13. So I go ahead and my common denominator for this one, I can take everything and multiply it to 15. So my common denominator would be 15b. So if I do that, I have 15b over 3b minus 2 times 15b over 5b. And we do equals, so 15b over 15. Now I'll see what cancels. 15 divided by 3 will give me 5. Okay. Then I have the b's will cancel. 15 divided by 5 will give me 3. And the 15s will cancel here. So I have 5, and my b's cancel. So 5 minus 6 is equal to b. So I have 5 minus 6, so negative 1 is equal to b. Okay, so that's my first restrictions. Then I go ahead and I figure out what else do I need to include or exclude. So 5b equals 0. So if I solve that, what will make it 0? Well, if b is equal to 0. So that's my other thing. Same thing here. So b equals 0. Okay. So now on here, I'm going to go ahead. I have 0 and negative 1. So those are like my little markers. And I go ahead and I pick a number that is less than negative 1 and I plug it into my original equation. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's let b equal, number less than negative 1 would be negative 2. So if I plug it in, I'm going to have 1 over negative 6 minus 2 over negative 2 times 5 will be negative 10. Is that less than 1 over 15? Okay. Well, I have negative, negative, so plus. And so I have negative 1/6 plus 2/10. And if you type that in your calculator, you're going to get 0.03 repeating. Okay, and then maybe you'd want to know what 1/15 is. If you type that into your calculator, it's 0.06 repeating. So is 0.03 less than 0.06? Yes. So I would shade less than. Now I pick a number that's in between 0 and negative 0.5. So I would probably try negative 0.5. Okay, and if we go ahead and plug that into my original equation, you would have 1 over 3 times negative 0.5 will give me 1.5, negative 1.5. Plus, I'll have 2 times 2 over 5 times negative 0.5. So it's going to give me, sorry, this was subtraction, right? There we go. So this is subtraction. So in my denominator, I have 5 times negative 0.5, which is negative 2.5. Now I will have a plus. Okay, and is that less than 1 over 15? So once again, my left-hand side, I go ahead and I calculate that on my calculator, and I get 0.13 repeating. Is that less than 0.06? No, it is not. So I do not include this part on my shaded part. So I've tried b equals negative 2, b equals negative 0.5, and now I'm going to try a number greater than 0. So I try that b is equal to 1. So that's going to give me 1 over 3 plus 2 over 5, and I want to know if that's less than 1 over 15. Well, this left-hand side, sorry, I keep writing plus when it's minus. So minus 1/3 minus 2/5, that will go ahead and give you negative 0.06 repeating, and is that less than 0.06 repeating? Well, a negative is less than, so yes, I would shade here. So now I need to go ahead and write my answer. My answer is where I have shaded. Okay, so my answer would be that b is less than negative 1. Okay, to be less than negative 1, or b is greater than 0, because it's got to be bigger. That would be my final answer for my inequality. Okay. That is the end of section 8.6 notes. We're going to go ahead and stop the video there. Once again, if you have questions, make sure you write them down. Otherwise, have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.